What's up, guys? Today we're going to take a dive into the story of Rochelle Waterman. Now, Rochelle Waterman was 16 years old when she conspired with her boyfriend and another man, which was her boyfriend's friend, to kill her mom. So today we're going to uncover as much information as we can. But before we take a dive into the story today, make sure y'all smash the sub button, smash the like button, and ring the bell so you get notified every single time I post a video. If you do not follow these 3 simple steps that I just provided to you, I hope the next time you're craving Chick-fil-A so bad and you drive 12 miles across town just to get to Chick-fil-A, you realize it's Sunday. Today's story is going to take us to a very small town called Craig. Now, Craig is located on an island in Alaska. On Sunday, November 14th of 2004, the authorities received a phone call that a hunter had found a burning van in the woods with potential human remains inside of it. So the police would rush to the scene and they would find the van still smoldering, and inside of it was something totally horrific.
I looked inside and saw what appeared to be a human skull about in the middle of the van. It was in between the front seats and the back seats and about in the midline of the car. And then there was a pile of remains there. It was blackened, charred. I could see some bones. I could see some other matter. I couldn't see any clothing.
At first, the police thought it was simply an accident. But then they noticed something rather strange. Why were the remains in the back seat if the victim was the driver? And how come there were traces of gasoline leading to the van? These questions led to only one conclusion. It was no accident, it was a murder. But who was behind it? Lori and Doc Waterman were well known and respected in the community. Doc was a real estate agent, while Lori worked as a special education aide. They also had 2 children. Their son Jeffrey, who was away in college, and their daughter Rochelle, who was an honors student and a local athlete at the high school. Those who knew Lori described her as being kind, beautiful, selfless, and a very giving woman who lived for her children.
She was church-going and had many friends and was just sort of the ideal resident of Craig, Alaska.
Saturday, November 13th, Lori had spent the evening volunteering at a Chamber of Commerce dinner, while her husband Doc was out of town and her daughter Rochelle was in Anchorage for a volleyball tournament. After the event, Lori would go home alone and get into bed a little after 11. She would never be seen alive again. Doc and Rochelle came home on Sunday afternoon to find Lori missing, and her van was gone. But there were some strange things around the house that just didn't make sense. To start, Lori's bed wasn't made, and there was an empty bottle of wine on the kitchen counter, which was weird because Lori didn't drink. Doc searched everywhere for his wife and even called all of her friends, but no one has seen or heard from her since the previous evening. Worried that something bad might have happened to his wife, Doc went ahead and called the police. Come Monday morning, the family still hasn't heard anything from Lori, and they were getting increasingly worried for her safety. But to maintain some sense of normalcy, Rochelle decided to go on to school, but her teachers would later say they found her demeanor quite odd for someone whose mother had been missing.
Some of her teachers asked her about it. They wanted to know that she was okay. She said she wasn't worried. She said her mom had probably gotten drunk and driven off the road somewhere.
Around that time, rumors had started to go around that the van had been found in the woods with human remains inside, and Rochelle completely lost it. She was then sent home where she would find the police had came to break the devastating news.
The authorities tell the Watermans that we don't have 100% ID on the remains, but it's starting to look almost 100% like it's Lori Waterman.
The family was completely shaken by this news, but their grief soon turned to horror when they learned that Lori had been murdered. How is this even possible? Lori was a beloved member of her community. Who would want to harm her? Immediately after Lori's remains were confirmed, investigators got a warrant to search the Waterman's residence, and they found some strange items, such as the tip of a rubber glove, some fibers coming from a synthetic rope, and even in the bedroom on the windowsill there was a footprint. Nothing had been stolen from the house, making the police believe that the person behind the murder was someone close to the family. But at that time, they had no idea just how close that person actually was. The police began questioning the people closest to Lori, who at the moment were Doc and Rochelle. But Doc's alibi was ironclad, so he was quickly ruled out as a suspect. But while questioning Rochelle, investigators learned that she had been involved with some creepy looking guys from town, Jason Arendt and Brian Radel, who were much older than she was. Apparently Rochelle was 15 when she met Brian, who was 24 at the time. Now they dated for a while until he introduced her to his friend Jason, who was also 24, and then she became involved with him. Now it was no secret that Lori did not approve of this relationship, and she and Michelle had fought several times because of it. Now, when investigators brought Brian and Jason in for questioning, they both denied knowing anything about Lori's murder, claiming that they had been at Brian's house the entire night of the killing, watching Princess Bride. However, when investigators pressed them, Jason completely cracked and revealed that Brian was the killer, and he was simply just the driver. So he agreed to wear a wire so the investigators could get a confession from Brian. And not only did Brian implicate himself, but he also revealed that Jason was much more involved than just driving. Later, Brian was brought into the police station and was told that Jason had been wearing a wire. And at this point, he gave in and confessed everything, revealing some chilling details. Apparently, it was supposed to look like a drunken accident. But before Brian broke into the Waterman's house, he shaved his entire body to avoid leaving any evidence behind.
I took her down to the kitchen. I asked her to point out where her purse and her keys were. She pointed with her hands. Then I went and got a wine bottle. I took the gag off, undid her hands, asked her where the glasses were, wine glasses. She pointed it out, gave the wine glass to Lori, filled it up, told her to drink. She drank.
After Lori had drank the entire bottle, he forced her into the backseat of her own van and drove to a remote area where Jason was waiting for them. While there, he dragged Lori out of the car and he tried to break her neck so that he could put her back in and simulate this drunken accident, but that didn't work.
Jason held her down for me. I karate chopped her in the throat.
With what?
The side of my hand.
When that failed, this monster then hit the poor woman on the throat multiple times with a flashlight and eventually choked her to death. But before she died, Lori had something to say.
She did say something.
What was it? Could you make it out?
Said, "Can I ask a question?" But I think she was too delirious by that time to realize I would let her ask the question.
And did you answer?
I said, "What is it?" But she just kept repeating. Can I ask a question?
I can't even imagine the horror that Lori must have went through that night, or what was going through her head while it was happening. Brian said that he believed that Lori wanted to know why they were doing this to her, but she never got the answer.
We knew at that point that the car crash scenario would never work. Because the damage was completely inconsistent with it.
When these two sickos realized that they could no longer stage an accident, they drove further into the woods and lit the van on fire with Lori inside. Now, after this confession, investigators wanted to know why they did this, and what did Lori ever do to them to make them want to kill her in such a brutal way? The answer is totally shocking. Apparently, these two sickos thought they were protecting Rochelle. Now, Rochelle had a blog called My Crappy Life, in which she described her life in Craig as hell. and complained about her mother being abusive towards her. In one entry, she wrote, "My crappy life, the inside look of an insane person. Location, Hell, Alaska." In the blog, she claimed that Lori, whom she referred to as female parental unit, criticized her about her weight. She would read her mail, and even one time she went psycho B-word on her and pushed her down a flight of stairs. On the day the police confirmed that Lori had been murdered, Rochelle wrote this in her blog. "Just to let everyone know, my mother was murdered. I will not have computer access until the weekend or so because the police took my computer to go through my hard drive." Jason said that Rochelle had told him about the abuse her mother had inflicted upon her and that she even had the bruises to prove it. He also claimed that it was Rochelle who come up with this whole plan of killing her own mother.
Okay. And she said that she thought it would be better if her mother wasn't around anymore.
When Rochelle was brought in for questioning, she completely denied ever saying those words. And she also claimed that she had no idea that Jason and Brian were planning on killing her mother.
I believe that somehow, probably very unwittingly, you are a catalyst in this whole incident, okay? There's a possibility that they may have misunderstood something you have said about relationships and disapproval of your mother and things along those lines that have motivated them to do this thing, okay?
I highly doubt Jason would do anything like that. I just really don't think so. He's just not, no, he wouldn't.
She did admit that she had been fighting with her mom about her choices of clothes, boyfriends, and even her recent interest in the occult, and claimed that her mom had done some pretty bad things to her.
Once I was laying there and she came to hand me a baseball bat on my legs. Once she tried to push me down the stairs.
She even alleged that her mom had once threatened to jab her with a knife and to sell her off as a lady of the night as punishment for something that she had done. Now, it's good to note that the police never found any evidence to support these accusations, and many people who knew Lori, including family members, also said they were false. Now, investigators also found a letter that Lori had handwritten to Rochelle saying, "My dearest daughter, I'm sorry things between us are so tense right now, but please don't feel like I think you're a bad person because you're not. I know I worry way too much about you, but that's just what moms do when they love their daughters as much as I love you." Now, Rochelle kept insisting that while Jason had offered to help get rid of her mother, she told him no, and she had no idea that these two would carry this murder out. However, detectives wanted to know how she knew her mom had died of drunk driving before the body was ever even discovered. At this point, Rochelle gave in and confessed. Now, according to Rochelle, the initial plan was not to kill her mother, but to get her emancipated from her parents. But Jason had brought up the idea of murder. Now, the three of them plotted together, with Rochelle telling them the perfect day to carry out this evil plan. On November 19, 2004, Rochelle, Brian, and Jason were arrested and charged with 10 counts, including conspiracy to commit murder, kidnapping, burglary, and first degree. Brian pleaded guilty and was sentenced to 99 years in prison, while Jason, who didn't commit the actual murder, received 50 years in prison. Rochelle pleaded not guilty to her charges and went to trial in January of 2006, with both Brian and Jason testifying against her. The trial, however, ended in a hung jury and had to be retried in 2011. She was found guilty of a much lesser charge of criminally negligent homicide and was sentenced to only 3 years in prison, which is basically a slap on the wrist considering what she did. She's now out of prison and her blog is still running, although some of her previous posts have been removed. I want to know what y'all think about this case. Let me know in the comments. Did Rochelle get off way too easy? Let me know what y'all think. Well, that's it for today, guys. I really appreciate y'all taking time out of your busy days and listening to my stories. I love every single one of you. Make sure y'all smash the sub button, smash the like button, and ring the bell so you get notified when I post new videos. I love y'all. It's the big dog, and I am out.